The fog rolling off the murky, reptile-infested water seemed especially menacing this strange night in Bishopville, South Carolina. The dead and withered cypress and tupelo trees, black with moss and decay, seemed to lean and loom at more of an angle this night, showing an unsettling interest in the quiet and lonely stretch of Royer Road that happens to border Scape Ore Swamp. The rancid odor of decaying meat wafted about from the gaping jaws of alligators on the hunt. Bullfrogs billowed, locusts buzzed, and grasshoppers sang. The crepitation a cacophony of nerve-wracking warnings. The barred owl hooted its cryptic questions, and the heron replied in a haunting call. The entire landscape was alert and ready, but ready for what? And why? Perhaps it was because this night, Christopher Davis, a 17-year-old heading home from work alone at 2 in the morning, would encounter the swamp's most tightly held secret and would barely escape with his life, kicking off a massive manhunt, newspaper and television reports, and $1 million reward. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Great American Urban Legend Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Micah, and along with my beautiful wife and co-host Amanda, aim to bring you a new and exciting urban legend from right here in these United States every single Friday night at 9 p.m. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to Prairie Paranormal Podcasts at Prairie Para Pod, Monster Legend Podcast at Monster Legend Podcast, and Paranormal Podcast at Paranormal Podcast. They are really paving the way for young upstart podcasts like us who really don't know the ropes or what we're doing. So please go check them out and support them. And be on the lookout for an awesome multi-podcast special that Prairie Lands Paranormal Podcast is putting on. It's going to be amazing. Before we get back to the story of Christopher Davis and the Scape Ore Swamp, I just want to take a moment and say thank you. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you to everyone who is following us and downloading, listening, and engaging with us. You guys are the very lifeblood of this podcast. You keep it going, so thank you. I also want to ask something of you guys, a favor, and I know, who am I to ask anything of you? But you'll never know if you don't ask, so here it goes. Would you please leave us a review on your podcast player of choice as you listen, or when you're through with this episode, or perhaps even on an episode that you've already listened to? You're not required to, and even if you never do, I'd still be cranking these episodes out, and I'd still be working on our brand new all-original horror series that we will be releasing in October, because I love creating and I love giving. It is therapeutic and a joy for me to give entertainment and value to others, so that won't stop. But if you can share this with your friends, if you can leave a review, if you engage with us on social media, we can make it so much more. So there you go. There's my favor I'm asking of you guys. We love you all here and truly cannot wait to engage more and more with you in the coming weeks and months. Also, thank you all for reaching out to us and giving us your honest feedback of last week's episode, and more specifically, the change up in Amanda taking more of a front and center role in the narration. The consensus was that you have a great voice and it was easy to listen to, but that the cadence of our voices together clashed and kind of affected the immersion. So I think what we're going to try is Amanda hosting an episode and me riding shotgun, then vice versa. We'll see how that goes. How do you feel about that?
That's a lot of pressure for me to do a whole episode by myself.
Well, I'll be here and I'll be the one going, ooh, and things like that. So you won't be alone.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely willing to give it a try.
Good. Well, that'll be fun. So I figure I'll take this one. And then
yes.
you can take the next one. So with you taking on narration...
Does that mean I get to pick it?
Okay, yeah. And that kind of goes along with what I was going to ask. So yes, the ones you narrate, you get to pick. But the ones you narrate and pick, are you also going to write?
No.
Well,
you are the writer. I will leave that all up to you.
All right, well, I thought it was worth a try. All right, well, since I'm taking this one, let's go ahead and jump back into it. So the legend is this. On June 29th, 1988, Christopher Davis was driving home late at night after another exhausting shift at a fast food restaurant. His commute had taken him on this route numerous times, and most likely would have numerous more. There was nothing out of the ordinary, nothing suspicious or out of place as far as he could tell from within the safety of his vehicle, and so he drove on. He just as easily could have taken the more traveled and much more well-lit Sumter Highway, circumventing the swamps altogether. But where's the fun in that? Just after 2 a.m., Davis's tire blew, and he came skidding to a stop on Royer Road. It was dark, and it was desolate, and it was the 80s. There was no such thing as cell phones back in the dark ages, and most 17-year-olds knew how to change a tire, so that's what he did. Duracell-powered artificial light gave him a narrow beam with which to work, and work he did. Davis did not want to spend any more time here than was absolutely necessary. The swamp was one thing when you have 2,000 pounds of steel between you and the whatever the hecks that are out there, but a completely different thing altogether when you have your butt turned to it and you're on your knees in the near perfect dark, every unnatural sound under the moon at your back. It's safe to say that this was the quickest Christopher had ever changed a flat tire. Christopher states that almost immediately after tossing the flat in the trunk and slamming it shut, he heard a thumping sound from somewhere behind him. A dizzying 180 brought him around to see a large, bipedal creature lumbering towards him. One news article quoted Davis as saying its searing eyes, three-clawed fingers, and snake-like scales made him initially believe he was under siege by the devil himself. Davis states that he ran and leaped into the car moments before the creature slammed against the side of the vehicle. The collision was so forceful that the entire car shook as metal bent and glass shattered. Davis says that the creature clawed and grabbed at the driver's side door and then leaped atop the roof as he peeled off, clinging to it tightly as he swerved and skidded away. He says that he was eventually able to throw the creature off by zigzagging erratically at high speeds.
So this thing is like out to get him.
Came after him on a mission. Now, for some reason it felt threatened or it felt like it was going to get him. Safe at home, later that morning, Davis found that the side of the car had been badly damaged and that there were deep lacerations, scratch marks all around the door handle and on the roof. Upon further inspection, there were also found teeth marks, hair, and muddy footprints on it. He decided not to report the incident as he feared that he would look insane and he would not be taken seriously. So weeks passed, but instead of forgetting about his encounter with the scaly humanoid creature, Davis was reminded again and again of that night as more and more reports came across the local evening news of a large lizard-like man being spotted in and around Scape Ore Swamp. Though the locations and interactions differed, the description of the creature remained, for the most part, the same. Green, snake-like eyes, scales, bipedal, and wet. Bolstered by these reports, Davis came forward and stated that I looked back and saw something running across the field towards me. It was about 25 yards away, and I saw red eyes glowing. I ran into the car, and as I locked it, the thing grabbed the door handle. I could see him from the neck down. 3 big fingers, long black nails, and green rough skin. It was strong and angry. I looked in my mirror and saw a blur of green running. I could see his toes, and then he jumped on the roof of my car. I thought I heard a grunt, and then I could see his fingers through the front windshield, where they curled around the roof. I sped up and swerved to shake the creature off. After Christopher's report, and the first bit of physical proof of an encounter by way of his damaged vehicle, news and media outlets became obsessed, and so did the public. The attention and coverage given to the areas surrounding Scape Ore Swamp, and even to Christopher himself, exploded. Local businesses and entrepreneurs began selling Lizard Man shirts and stickers. The Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp tours began and incited almost daily battles for the best locations to hopefully catch a glimpse of this burgeoning celebrity. Even the Chamber of Commerce got in on it, encouraging the rumors, reports, and media attention, as it was, quote, good for the community. The rise in notoriety, the media attention, and the almost daily sightings triggered mass hysteria. Fans, captivated by the fantasy, the idea of the unknown becoming known, began to flock to Lee County. Bishopville became one of the hottest spots in the states, drawing both tourists and hunters in droves. A local radio station even offered a $1 million reward for anyone who could capture the cryptid alive.
Wait, so what is a cryptid? I don't think I've ever heard that term before.
Okay, so really I hadn't either before we started doing this. You know, when I started doing research, what are we on, episode 6? 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, when I started doing research, a cryptid is a creature of legend, usually born from folklore or mythology. They're creatures that exist but don't exist. Bigfoot, Nessie, the Jersey Devil, Momo, Yetis, those are all cryptids.
Ooh, I love those urban legends. Those are probably some of the most fun for me.
Yeah.
You should definitely do more of those.
Yeah, and I had a lot of fun doing this one, and the hauntings and the curses, and those are fun. But this is kind of more my jam.
This is like more fun to believe in,
right?
You know, like you want there to be a Nessie
exactly
in the ocean, and you want there to be a Bigfoot in the woods,
right? And there is.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So for weeks after Christopher's coming forward and telling his tale, Bishopville was a mecca for all things cryptid and paranormal, and rightly so. I mean, how exciting to have this kind of thing happen right here in our own backyard. With so many sightings and the media and news outlets hyping it up, it brought a unity, a commonality to the people, something that they could all get behind and support. Even if you don't necessarily believe it, it was still fun to be part of something that everyone could get behind. Honestly, I wish we had something like this going on right now. Reports came flooding in, claiming that a large lizard-like creature was up to all sorts of mischief. For miles around, it seemed that everyone knew someone who had had an encounter with the creature. From striking it with their vehicles, to seeing it steal their fresh out of the oven apple pies that were cooling on the windowsill, to narrowly escaping its razor-sharp claws as it attacked vehicles that happened to venture too close to the swamps, often leaving scratch marks and dents. The stories were endless. One story in particular I found quite amusing, as a woman had reported that she had drawn a bath late one evening and went to fetch her towels, and when she came back, the lizard man was waiting for her in the tub. It went on from there, but we'll stop there for the sake of keep
it PG.
Yeah. And this one might be false, maybe, but the images that I'm able to conjure from such a scenario are pretty hilarious. Now, the local law took all of this with a combination of unease and disbelief. Though they were quick to dismiss the frenzy and hysteria, they were concerned with the amount of sightings and encounters that were reported by trustworthy and reputable members of the county and beyond. The circumstantial evidence was piling up, but they had nothing reliable, nothing tangible. Nothing, that is, until the sheriff's office was called to a remote area of the woods and served their first helping of hard, irrefutable evidence. Tracks. Footprints.
They need the X-Files on this case.
Well, David and Jillian were busy, so they get Micah and Amanda.
The B team.
Yeah. T-Golf.
Ugh.
These were not human footprints, though they were definitely made by a creature or a thing that walked upright on two legs. The gait was massive at approximately 40 inches, and the prints deep, suggesting a sizable being, and they were three-toed and claw-shaped. The sheriff had no choice but to begin an investigation and had plaster casts made of the prints. They were sent to a local biologist for inspection. What the biologist at the South Carolina Marine Resources Department had to say was most definitely not what the sheriff wanted to hear. The biologist reported that these prints were unclassifiable and were not from any known animal or species recorded to date. These prints were not from any creature known to man.
Ooh.
Yeah,
it's getting interesting.
Right. I mean, that kind of cemented it for me, that the biologist was like, nah, I don't know what these are. Faced with this new and frightening information, the sheriff quickly began a clandestine cover-up. The plaster prints were buried, and there was no report made to the FBI, as would have been protocol if there were anything to report. New reports were ignored or lost or unheeded, and the hype over the lizard man of Scape or Swamp slowly began to fizzle out as summer began to wane. Days became cooler, vacations ended, and reality slowly started to settle things down. Things were beginning to return to normal. Late that summer, an airman stationed at Shaw Air Force Base by the name of Kenneth Orr reignited the fervor. Orr reported to officials that he'd had an encounter with the lizard man near Highway 15. He was so frightened by this encounter that he had fired at the creature and wounded it, or produced a large number of bloodied scales as evidence of his experience, and described the beast as a 7-foot-tall, man-like creature with claws and webbed hands, red eyes, and a large stride. Orr took the mantle of local hero and go-to for the cryptid lore, but his celebrity was short-lived as he was forced to recant his tale when the investigation concluded, and he was charged with unlawfully carrying and discharging a pistol and filing a false police report.
What?
Yeah, so he kind of backtracked real fast when they were like, yeah, you might have shot this thing, but you did it illegally, so do you really want to say that you shot this thing? He's like, nah, I was just playing. Orr was reported as saying that he had made the entire encounter up as a way to keep the legend alive. I call shenanigans there.
Oh, yeah,
I
definitely.
call cover up. But with, being threatened with, serving time, you're going to recant.
Right.
Yeah. Officials pushed the narrative that these sightings, the scratches and dents in the vehicles, the encounters were indeed a dangerous and large bipedal creature. That creature just happened to be a bear. Life returned.
Now that doesn't make sense because the biologist already said she could not identify the prints.
Right. Also, it is 2020, so why is the biologist automatically a woman?
That's like progressive, Micah.
I'm just saying, don't kick us to the curb. It could have been a man.
I'm like on my X-Files theme. It's Scully for sure doing all the research.
Yeah, I get you. Nobody knows what the biologist said, and nobody knows that the officials poo-pooed it.
Okay.
So life returned to normal, and the lizard man was forgotten, lost to the annals of legend and lore, only spoken of around the campfire. The story took on many forms and strayed so far from the original source material that it was hardly recognizable as the years passed. Some maintain that the creature had scales, while others argue that it was covered in fur, more akin to a Sasquatch, or that it was caked in mud and moss, i.e. the Swamp Thing. Officials and skeptics mercilessly poked holes in Davis's telling. How far away was Davis from the creature? How was he able to see it in the pitch black of night with just a small flashlight and make out all those details? According to officials, Davis's story changed multiple times when he was asked to make official statements. According to the Fortean Times, one official is quoted as saying that Davis's encounter is quite literally incredible, riddled with both implausibilities and impossibilities. It may be sincere or it may be a hoax, but in either event, no hard evidence of the creature has been found. Lies. Though Davis did pass a lie detector test administered by Southern Marketing Inc., officials discount this as merely a publicity stunt and an attempt at celebrity. The original story circulated through over 100 newspapers and media outlets. Nowadays, the lizard man is more folk hero than dangerous beast. Bishopville even started a new tradition surrounding the locally loved cryptid, the Lizard Man Festival, where cryptozoologists, paranormal investigators, and even biologists gather to celebrate the creature. Speakers and vendors are lined up for the 3-day event, and it draws quite the crowd. Even the COVID-19 pandemic couldn't slow down the Lizard Man's momentum, as this, the festival's 3rd year, was held completely online, and it's still sold out. Panels are held where experts and novices alike discuss the Lizard Man and other paranormal topics. Guided tours are held over the weekend, visiting all the important areas and locations of various sightings and encounters, especially those in and around Scape or Swamp. According to the South Carolina Public Radio website, John Stemme, the festival's planner, is 100% on board with Davis and believes the stories are completely true. To be honest with you, he says, there's something in Scape or Swamp. We will one day find out what is causing all of this if we keep looking. Lyle Blackburn, leading lizard man authority and cryptozoologist, has spent countless hours investigating this legend and even spent time in the files of Sheriff Liston Truesdale, who led the investigations at the time. Blackburn has written a book entitled Lizard Man, The True Story of the Bishopville Monster, which is available on Amazon. So what he has to say about the matter, you can probably take to the bank. He says that while he personally thinks that whatever was here during the summer of 1988 has most likely moved on, that if we were to catch a glimpse of it again, it would be right here in Scape or Swamp.
Okay, so that was going to be my question. Like, have there been any recent sightings?
Yeah, I know that in 2008, there was a story that ran on CNN about a possible new sighting, and they actually had blood traces collected. In 2015, a local television station had claimed that there were new photos and videos of the lizard man. And as late as August of 2017, during the solar eclipse, there were reports of possible paranormal activity, and for everyone to remain vigilant as sightings of the lizard man began to pop up again.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So he's still there and kicking. He just
So maybe he has not moved on.
Yeah.
Maybe he's getting old and lazy.
just kind of set in his ways. Yeah. So that's it. What'd you think? You crazy kid just looking for attention, making up a story, a legit cryptid case, cover up.
I think he definitely saw something.
Yeah.
That night. I don't know what it was, but I like the legend. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I definitely think that he saw a lizard man. I definitely think lizard man lives in Scape or Swamp, and I definitely think the fuzz tried to cover it up.
So does this lizard man like come to be? I guess I don't know enough about, like lore and legend, like how he came to be created. Like, is he like a mutant or?
Yeah, he probably was just chilling in the sewers and came across some ooze, and then a dope rat, raised him and taught him everything he knows. And okay, everyone, so that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this episode on the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Is he still around? Was he ever around? Let us know. Let's talk about it. Please remember to follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Give us a like and a share. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it is a huge help in moving this thing along, and those couple clicks can really go a long way in supporting what we do here. And please, 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 if you can, leave us a review on your podcast player of choice. This is a tremendous boon for us here at T-Gold. Also, stay tuned for an awesome original series that will be releasing soon. You won't want to miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you're interested in checking out Prairie Paranormal Podcasts, Monster Legend Podcasts, or Paranormal Podcasts, I will leave their information in the comments, as well as a link to Lyle Blackburn's book, Lizard Man, The True Story of the Bishopville Monster, so you can check that out as well. Thanks so much, everyone. I've been Micah.
And I'm Amanda.
And this has been the Great American Urban Legend Podcast. Good night. Won't leave that in there.